Captain He-Yun stood at the bridge of the Terran Federation ship, Dauntless, her dark eyes fixed on the massive viewing screen before her. The stars stretched endlessly into the black void of space, each one holding secrets she had learned to read over her 15 years of service. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Stellar Council," said Ta-1, his fingers dancing across the glowing control panel. The tactical officer's voice carried its usual calm, but He-Yun caught the slight edge of concern. She straightened her navy blue uniform and nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered, revealing the imposing figure of Ambassador Krev from the Nax Empire. His scaled skin reflected the harsh lighting of his chamber, and his four eyes blinked in their usual unsettling pattern. He-Yun kept her face neutral, though her stomach tightened at the sight of him. "Captain He-Yun," Kreb's voice rumbled through the speakers. "The Stellar Council is concerned about your recent proposals. The trade routes I've suggested would benefit everyone, Ambassador," He-Yun replied, her voice firm but polite. "Even the Nax Empire would see a 30% increase in profit from their outer colonies. Or perhaps," Kreb's upper eyes narrowed, "humans simply wish to extend their influence where it doesn't belong." Behind He-Yun, Security Chief Jiho shifted slightly. She could feel his tension without looking. The tall, broad-shouldered man had served with her for 7 years, and he never trusted the Nax. He-Yun couldn't blame him, not after what happened to his family during the border skirmishes. "Ambassador," He-Yun stepped forward, letting a small smile cross her face. "In the 3 years I've represented human interests in this sector, have I ever given you reason to doubt my honesty?" Krev's scales rippled, a sign of frustration in his species. "No," he admitted reluctantly. "But—" "Then trust me now," she interrupted gently. "I sent the complete data to your analysts. Review it. You'll see that these routes don't just benefit humanity. They create opportunities for all species in the Council." The bridge crew held their breath. He-Yun had just done something rarely attempted. She had cut off a Nax ambassador mid-sentence. In their culture, it was considered either a grave insult or a sign of absolute authority. Krev stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "You continue to surprise me, Captain." "Very well. We will review your proposal." The screen went dark. He-Yun let out a quiet breath. "He's planning something," Jiho said softly, moving to stand beside her chair. "The Nax never agree that easily." "I know." He-Yun tapped her fingers on the armrest. "Ta-1, what did the scan show during the transmission?" Ta-1 pulled up a holographic display. "Their ship's weapon systems were powered up the entire time, Captain. And there were unusual energy readings from their cargo hold." "Smuggled weapons," He-Yun nodded, "just as we suspected. Send the data to Duha in intelligence." Quietly. The bridge hummed with activity as her crew carried out their tasks. He-Yun watched them with pride. Ta-1 at tactical, his lean frame bent over his station as he compiled the scan data. Jiho standing guard, his skirt hands clasped behind his back. Young Minji at engineering, her fingers flying over 3 screens at once as she monitored the ship's systems. They were the best crew in the Federation, though few knew it. Their victories were quiet ones. Diplomatic agreements secured, conflicts prevented, threats detected and neutralized before they could explode into violence. He-Yun preferred it that way. Let others chase glory in battle. She knew the real power lay in preventing wars, not winning them. "Captain," Sun Mi's voice came through the comm. The medical officer sounded worried. "Could you come to the med bay? There's something you need to see." He-Yun stood. "On my way. Jiho with me. Ta-1, you have the bridge." As they walked through the gleaming corridors of the Dauntless, Jiho spoke quietly. "The trade routes aren't the real reason for this mission, are they, Captain?" He-Yun's steps didn't falter. "The routes matter, Jiho. But you're right. They're not the main objective. We're here because someone in the Stellar Council is selling weapons to pirates in the Outer Rim. Those weapons are being used against civilian ships, human and alien alike. And you think it's the Nax. I know it's the Nax. I just need to prove it. She stopped outside the med bay doors. And when I do, Ambassador Krev will learn why it's dangerous to underestimate humans. Especially this one. The doors slid open, revealing Sun Ma's worried face. Behind her, on a medical screen, glowed an image that made He-Yun's blood run cold. Maybe she would get her proof sooner than expected. But the cost might be higher than she planned. The medical screen showed a weapons blueprint that made even Jai-Ho step back. Sun Ma pointed to the complex molecular structure rotating slowly in the display. It's a neurotoxin, Sun Ma said, her voice tight. Designed specifically for human biology. Someone uploaded this to our medical database an hour ago. He-Yun's face remained calm, though her mind raced. Can you trace the source? No, Captain. Sun Ma shook her head, her short black hair swaying with the movement. But that's not the worst part. Look at the date mark. The timestamp showed tomorrow's date. They're planning to use it at the diplomatic reception, Jai-Ho said, his hands clenching into fists. On Nexus 7 station, He-Yun studied the blueprint carefully. Sun Ma, can you create an antidote? Not in time. The medical officer's fingers flew across her tablet. This toxin, it's brilliant and terrible. It targets human nerve endings but leaves no trace. The victim appears to die from natural causes. The captain turned to Jai-Ho. Cancel the reception. Quietly. We can't. Jai-Ho's face darkened. The Stellar Council made attendance mandatory after yesterday's trade route discussion. If we don't show up, the trade agreement fails. He-Yun finished. And the weapons keep flowing to the pirates. She straightened her shoulders. Then we go. But we go prepared. 3 hours later, He-Yun stood in the grand reception hall of Nexus 7. The space station's artificial gravity felt slightly off, as it always did. Or maybe it was just her nerves. The hall sparkled with lights and filled with representatives from a dozen species. Tai-1 stood near the drinks table, pretending to enjoy a conversation with a Stellar Council member. His hand never strayed far from his concealed scanner. Drink, Captain. A server approached with a tray of glasses. He-Yun smiled and took one, but didn't drink. The liquid scanner hidden in her ring would need 30 seconds to analyze it. Ambassador Krev approached, his scales gleaming under the bright lights. 2 of his guards followed at a distance. Captain He-Yun, I'm pleased you could attend. The pleasure is mine, Ambassador. She gestured to the crowded room. Quite a gathering. Indeed. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The council was most impressed with your trade proposal. They've decided to approve it. He-Yun's ring vibrated once. The drink was clean. She took a small sip. That's excellent news. Yes. Krev moved closer, though some details still need to be worked out. A commotion broke out near the entrance. He-Yun turned to look, and that's when she felt it. A tiny prick at the back of her neck. Her legs gave out immediately. Strong hands caught her. Jai-Ho, she realized dimly. Around her, voices raised in alarm. The human captain. Someone shouted. Called medical. He-Yun couldn't move, couldn't speak, but she could see and hear everything. Krev stood over her, his face a mask of false concern. How unfortunate, he said, just loud enough for her to hear. It seems humans are more fragile than we thought. Her vision began to dim. She saw Sun Ma running toward her with a medical kit. Tai-1 was shouting into his communicator. Jai-Ho cradled her head, his eyes filled with fury. Then everything went black. When He-Yun opened her eyes, she was in the Dauntless's med bay. Sun Ma stood over her, checking readings. How long? He-Yun's voice was a whisper. 6 hours, Sun Ma replied. The toxin should have killed you, but your body. Captain, your colonial birth saved your life. The genetic modifications all colonial children receive to survive high radiation environments. They made you resistant. He-yun tried to move. Her body refused to respond. The Nax. They think you're dead. We announced it an hour ago. Sun's eyes gleamed. Ambassador Krev sent his deepest condolences. Despite the paralysis, He-yun managed a small smile. Good. Keep me dead. Sunmei. Don't tell anyone I survived. Not even the crew. Not yet. Captain. The Nax made a mistake, He-yun said softly. They tried to kill me quietly, make it look natural. That was their error. She closed her eyes, already planning. They should have used a bomb. Something messy and obvious. Because now I have the one thing an assassin should never give their target. Sunmai leaned closer. What's that? He-yun's smile grew slightly wider. Time to plan my revenge. For 3 days, He-yun lay motionless in a hidden room behind Sun's office. The medical bay's official logs showed nothing but empty beds and routine checkups. To the world outside, Captain He-yun was dead, her body released to her family on Earth. On the 4th day, she could move her fingers. The paralysis is wearing off faster than expected, Sunmai said, checking the medical scanner. Your colonial genetics are impressive. He-yun managed to turn her head slightly. Ship status. Taiwan is acting captain now. He's doing well, keeping the crew focused, maintaining our routine patrols. Sunmai adjusted the bed's position. Jiho nearly started a war, though. We had to stop him from storming the Nax embassy. A small smile crossed He-yun's face. Typical Jiho. Any word from Duha? Here. Sunmai held up a datapad. Our intelligence officer sent this an hour ago. The Nax are celebrating. Commander Krev has been promoted for, and I quote, skillfully managing the human situation. He-yun's fingers curled into a weak fist. Show me everything. The datapad displayed a series of reports. Trade manifests, ship movements, communications logs. Duha had been busy. The intelligence officer's note at the bottom read, the snake has many heads, but I found the nest. They're moving weapons through 3 different routes, He-yun said, her voice getting stronger. Clever. Each route looks legal on its own. Put them together. And you see the pattern. Sunmai finished. But we need proof that will stand up in the Stellar Council. He-yun's dark eyes fixed on the ceiling. No. What we need is leverage. She turned to Sunmai. Get Minji here, quietly. An hour later, the young engineer slipped into the hidden room. Minji's eyes went wide at the sight of her captain alive. You. How? Sit down, Minji. He-yun's voice was gentle. I need your help, and what I'm about to ask you to do is completely unofficial. Minji sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The whole crew would help you, Captain. If they knew. They can't know. Not yet. He-yun pushed herself up slightly. Tell me about the new stealth system you've been working on. The engineer's eyes lit up. The phase shift cloak. But it's not ready. The power requirements are massive, and the field only holds for 20 minutes at most. 20 minutes is enough. He-yun reached out with shaking fingers and pulled up a star chart. If someone wanted to, say, slip into a Nax military base undetected. Minji's breath caught. Then a slow smile spread across her face. I'll need access to the secondary engineering lab, and some parts that officially don't exist. Sunmai will help with the requisitions. He-yun looked at both women. What we're planning. It's not exactly within Federation regulations. With all respect, Captain, Sunmai said firmly, they tried to murder you. Regulations can go space themselves. He-yun nodded. Get started. And Minji, not a word to anyone. Not even Jiho or Taiwan. For now, I'm still dead. After they left, He-yun forced her body to move. The pain was intense, but she pushed through it. Step by step, she walked the small room's length. Her legs shook with each step, but she kept going. The Nax had failed to kill her. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was not confirming the kill personally, but their biggest mistake. They thought humans were sinful creatures who would react with blind rage and direct revenge. They didn't understand that humans could be patient, that they could plan, that they could weave a web so subtle and strong that by the time you noticed it, escape was impossible. He-Yun reached the end of the room and turned around. Her legs were steadier now. On her data pad, a message from Duha appeared. Found something interesting in Commander Krebs' personal logs. When should we discuss? He-Yun smiled. The pieces were falling into place. She typed back a single word. Soon. Then she started another lap of the room. Each step was stronger than the last. Each step took her closer to the moment when the Nax would learn why attempting to assassinate a human captain was the worst mistake they could have made. They had given her a gift, really. Not just time to plan, but a unique advantage. Everyone thought she was dead. And the dead, as He-Yun knew, could move in ways the living never expected. 2 weeks after her death, He-Yun stood in Minji's secret lab, watching the young engineer make final adjustments to the phase shift cloak. Her body had mostly recovered, though she still felt twinges of pain when she moved too quickly. It's ready, Minji said, wiping sweat from her forehead. But remember, 20 minutes is the absolute limit. After that, the power core will fail. He-Yun touched the small device. It looked like an ordinary belt, and it works on both people and small ships. Yes, I tested it myself. Minji grinned, walked right through the mess hall during lunch. Nobody saw a thing. The door slid open, and Duha entered. The intelligence officer carried a data crystal. Captain, you need to see this. They gathered around a secure display. Duha inserted the crystal, and streams of data filled the screen. I planted tracking codes in the Nax shipping network, Duha explained. Every weapon shipment they send creates a tiny energy signature. Following these signatures, she touched the screen, and red lines appeared, connecting different star systems. He-Yun leaned forward. Those aren't their usual trade routes. No, Duha's eyes gleamed. These go to pirate bases in the Outer Rim. And look who authorizes each shipment. The authorization codes all carried the same signature. Commander Krev. Perfect. He-Yun straightened. Time for Phase 1. Duha, start the data leak. Slowly, through multiple sources. I want the Nax merchants to notice first. Duha nodded and began typing. It will take about 3 days to seem natural. Good. He-Yun turned to Minji. Is the shuttle ready? Waiting in Bay 3. Taiwan thinks it's undergoing repairs. He-Yun picked up the belt. Then it's time to pay Commander Krebs' private estate a visit. That night, a small shuttle left the Dauntless, its power signature matching routine maintenance craft. Inside, He-Yun checked the phase shift belt one last time. The Nax estate loomed ahead, its security lights cutting through the darkness of the colony world's night. Guard patrols moved in regular patterns around the perimeter. He-Yun landed the shuttle 2 kilometers away, hiding it in a grove of alien trees. She activated the belt, and her body shimmed slightly as the phase shift field engaged. A heads-up display appeared in her vision. 20 o'clock minutes, counting down. She moved quickly but carefully toward the estate. Guards walked past without seeing her. Security cameras stared blindly as she slipped through their covered zones. 19 o'clock minutes. The main house's security pad yielded to a code breaker Duha had provided. He-Yun entered, her boots silent on the polished floor. 17:30 minutes. Commander Krebs' office was on the 2nd floor. He-Yun found it easily, the only room still showing lights at this hour. She placed small devices in hidden corners. Surveillance bugs, but not ordinary ones. These were Minji's special design, capable of tapping into the estate's private network. 15 o'clock minutes. In the office, He-Yun connected a data spike to Krebs' private terminal. Duha's program began copying everything. But He-Yun wasn't done. She removed something from her pocket, a small holoprojector. 12 o'clock minutes. She placed the projector under Krebs' desk, then accessed his communication system. A few quick commands, and 10 o'clock minutes. The job was done. He-Yun moved quickly back through the house. As she reached the garden, voices approached, guards changing shifts. 7 o'clock minutes. She had to take a longer route back to the shuttle. Her heart pounded as the timer ticked down. 4 o'clock minutes. The shuttle came into view. He-Yun ran now, no longer worried about stealth. 2 o'clock minutes. She reached the shuttle, cycled the airlock. 0:30 seconds. The engines powered up. 0:05 seconds. The phase shift field collapsed just as she lifted off. But by then she was already climbing through the atmosphere, her shuttle's signature still reading as maintenance traffic. Back in Minji's lab, He-Yun handed over the belt. It worked perfectly. Did you get what you needed? Duha asked. He-Yun smiled. More than that. Tomorrow morning, Commander Krev will receive a message on his private channel. When he opens it, a hologram will appear on his desk. Her smile grew slightly wider. A hologram of me. Minji's eyes widened. What will it say? Just 2 words. He-Yun turned to the display showing the weapon shipment routes. Miss me. The next day, reports came in of Commander Krev causing a scene at Nak's military command. Apparently, he'd seen a ghost in his office and was demanding increased security. No one believed him, of course. After all, Captain He-Yun was dead. Wasn't she? The Nak's military parade was the biggest event of their solar cycle. Thousands gathered in the capital city to watch warships fly overhead and soldiers march in perfect lines. Commander Krev stood on the main platform, trying to look confident despite the dark circles under his 4 eyes. Another report of her, his aide whispered. 3 crew members saw Captain He-Yun in the market district yesterday. Impossible, Krev hissed. She's dead. We confirmed it. Yes, sir. But that's the 10th sighting this week. Krev's scales rippled with anger. He had doubled his security, changed all his codes, even moved to a different estate. But the sightings continued. And those messages kept appearing on his private screens, always just 2 words. Miss me. The parade began. Nak's battle cruisers roared overhead, their engines shaking the ground. Krev forced himself to wave at the crowds. In the shadow of a nearby building, He-Yun watched through binoculars. Sunmai stood beside her, checking a medical scanner. Your vitals are strong, Sunmai said. The paralysis is completely gone. Good. He-Yun lowered the binoculars. Is everything ready? Sunmai nodded. Duha's team has control of their communication network. Minji's devices are in place. Taiwan and Jiho are standing by. Then it's time. He-Yun straightened her uniform, a new one, identical to the one she'd worn the day they tried to kill her. How do I look? Like a ghost coming back to haunt them. Sunmi smiled. He-Yun walked out of the shadows and into the crowded square. People turned to stare. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. It's her, the human captain. But she's dead. On the platform, Krev's aide tugged his sleeve. Sir, look. Krev turned. His 4 eyes widened in shock. He-Yun walked calmly through the parting crowd. Her boots clicked on the pavement, the sound somehow carrying over the noise of the engines above. When she reached the platform steps, 2 guards moved to stop her. Stand down, she said quietly. The guards hesitated, looking at each other. Arrest her, Krev shouted, his voice cracking. She's an imposter. He-Yun reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button. Every screen in the square, from the massive public displays to personal devices, suddenly changed. They showed shipping manifests, bank transfers, coded messages. And at the center of it all, Commander Krev's personal authorization codes. The dead can't be imposters, He-Yun said, her voice now amplified through the square's speaker system. But the living can be traitors. The crowd erupted in confusion. On the screens, the evidence continued to scroll. Weapons sold to pirates, attacks coordinated against civilian ships, profits flowing into secret accounts. This is a trick. Krev backed away. Guards. Arist. Your guards are busy. Hei-Yun climbed the steps. Right now, they're discovering weapons caches in all your bases. Weapons that match those used in recent pirate attacks. Weapons you sold. Krev's scales turned pale. He reached for his weapon. But Hei-Yun was faster. She didn't draw a gun. She simply held up another small device. The thing about being dead, she said conversationally, is that people don't watch what they say around you. Your own officers have been reporting to me for weeks, thinking they were sending messages to your private network. From the crowd, Nax civilians began shouting angry questions. Military officers were receiving frantic messages from their bases. Everything was unraveling. You're alone, Commander. Hei-Yun stepped closer. Your allies have already been arrested. Your accounts are frozen. Your network is compromised. She smiled slightly. Would you like to know how long I've been in your systems? How many of your people actually work for me now? Krev looked around wildly, but saw only hostile faces. Even his personal guards had stepped back. You tried to kill me. Hei-Yun said softly. That was your mistake. But trying to make it look like natural causes. That was your bigger mistake. She reached up and straightened his collar, making him flinch. Because a natural death doesn't make people angry. It doesn't make them look closer at the person responsible. It doesn't make them question everything. She stepped back and raised her voice. But coming back from the dead, that makes everyone pay attention. The sound of police shuttles filled the air. Krev's shoulders slumped in defeat. Hei-Yun turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Commander, miss me. 3 days after the parade, Hei-Yun sat in her captain's chair on the Dauntless, watching the chaos unfold across Nax space. The main screen showed multiple news feeds, protests in Nax cities, military ships changing course, colonies declaring their independence. Captain Ta-1 called from his station. Incoming transmission from the Stellar Council. Put it through. The screen changed to show the council chamber. 5 different alien species sat at their high seats, looking down at her. In the background, she could see empty chairs where the Nax representatives usually sat. Captain Hei-Yun, the head counselor, spoke. Your resurrection has caused quite a stir. Being murdered does that to a person. Hei-Yun replied calmly. The evidence you provided about Commander Krebs' activities is concerning. However, the head counselor paused. The Nax Empire claims it's all fabricated. They say you're using this situation to destabilize their government. Before Hei-Yun could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Jeho shouted from security. Nax warships. They're charging weapons. The council transmission cut off as the Dauntless rocked from the first hits. Shields holding. Minji reported from engineering. But they've got us surrounded. Hei-Yun's fingers tightened on her chair's armrests. How many ships? 6 cruisers. Ta-1's hands flew over his controls. They're jamming our communications. Captain. Duha's voice came through the internal comm. Message getting through on the encrypted channel. It's from Krev. The commander's face appeared on a small screen. He looked desperate but triumphant. Did you think I wouldn't have a backup plan? He snarled. Surrender now, and maybe I'll let your crew live. Hei-Yun smiled slightly. Commander, did you really think I wouldn't have one too? She pressed a button on her chair. Minji. Now. Suddenly, the lights on 2 of the Nax cruisers went dark. Their weapons powered down. What? Krev's face showed confusion. What did you do? Remember those weapons you sold to the pirates? Hei-Yun leaned forward. My engineer found a very interesting control system built into them. The same system that's in all Nax military ships. Her smile grew. Would you like to see what else she found? One by one, the other Nax ships lost power. Only Krev's flagship remained active. Impossible. Krev's scales were practically white now. Those systems are sealed. Like your private network was sealed. He-Yun shook her head. You should have checked those weapon shipments more carefully. My people planted override codes in them months ago. Every time you sold weapons to pirates, you gave us another way into your systems. The bridge crew worked quickly, taking control of the disabled ships. Jai-Ho, He-Yun called. Send the real evidence to the Stellar Council. All of it, including the backup files we found in the commander's hidden bases. Already done, Captain. Jai-Ho grinned. You can't do this. Krev was shouting now. I am a commander of the Nax Empire. No. He-Yun stood up. You're a weapons dealer who got caught. And now everyone knows it. She nodded to Ta-Wan. Send the final code. Krev's transmission cut off as his flagship's systems began to shut down. All Nax ships disabled, Ta-Wan reported. Stellar Council ships approaching. They're requesting permission to board the disabled vessels. He-Yun nodded. Grant it, and get me a channel to the Council. When the Council appeared again, their attitude had changed completely. Captain, the head counselor spoke carefully. We've received your additional evidence. It's extensive and real. He-Yun added. Every bit of it. Commander Krev didn't just sell weapons to pirates. He used those sales to build a secret network throughout Nax space, a network we've just taken control of. The Nax Empire will not stand for this, one counselor protested. The Nax Empire doesn't have a choice. He-Yun's voice was firm. Right now, their entire military fleet is compromised. Their weapon systems are under our control. They can either accept a full investigation and reforms, or she let the silence hang. The council chamber erupted in argument. He-Yun sat back in her chair, watching. Sometimes, she thought, the best revenge wasn't about destroying your enemy. It was about making them destroy themselves. The secret Nax facility hung in space like a dark spider web, its metal arms stretching out into the void. He-Yun stood on the Dauntless's bridge, watching it through the main viewer. Life signs confirmed, Jai-Ho reported. Commander Krev is inside, along with about 50 guards. After escaping from his disabled flagship, Krev had fled here, his last hidden base, the place where he planned the assassination attempt on He-Yun. Status of their weapons, she asked. Minji checked her readings. Their systems are fighting my override codes. We have maybe 10 minutes before they regain full control. He-Yun nodded. That's all I need. She turned to her crew. No one else comes with me. If something goes wrong, the Dauntless needs to be ready to leave quickly. Captain, Ta-Wan stepped forward. At least let Jai-Ho. No. He-Yun checked her phase shift belt. This started between me and Krev. It ends the same way. Sun Mai handed her a small injector. Antitoxin, just in case. And Captain. She hugged He-Yun quickly. Make him pay. He-Yun took a small shuttle across to the facility. The phase shift belt kept her invisible as she docked and entered through an airlock. Inside, she could hear guards running, shouting orders, trying to restore their systems. She made her way deeper into the facility, following the path Duha's intelligence had mapped out. The timer on her belt showed 15 minutes remaining. 12 minutes. She found the central control room. Krev stood at a large window, staring out at the Dauntless. Armed guards lined the walls. 10 minutes. He-Yun deactivated the phase shift belt. She appeared in the middle of the room, making guards jump and raise their weapons. Hello, Commander, she said quietly. We need to talk. Shoot her. Krev screamed. I wouldn't. He-Yun held up a small device. Unless you want the air vents to open to space. The guards hesitated. Krev's scales rippled with fury. You're bluffing, he said. Like you bluffed about the trade routes. He-Yun took a step forward. Like you bluffed about the weapons sales. Like you bluffed about killing me. She pressed a button. Warning lights flashed as several outer doors opened, though not to space. The sound of vacuum doors sealing echoed through the facility. That was just a warning, she said. The next one won't be. Lower your weapons, Krev ordered his guards. Then he laughed. A harsh, desperate sound. So what now, Captain? You arrest me. Take me to the council. No. He-Yun walked to the window. Now you make a choice. She pressed another button. Screens lit up around the room, showing data streams. This facility's memory cores contain everything, she said. Every deal you made, every credit you stole, every person you had killed. I'm transmitting it all to the Stellar Council right now. Krev's eyes widened. You'll destroy the Nax Empire. You did that yourself. He-Yun's voice was cold. But there's a second transmission ready to go. One that shows how you acted alone. How loyal Nax officials helped stop you. How the Empire can survive, if they accept reforms. She turned to face him. Your choice, Commander. Take full blame, face trial alone, and save your Empire. Or I send everything, and your entire species pays for your crimes. You? Krev's hand shook. You would show mercy. After what I did to you. This isn't mercy. He-Yun's eyes were hard. This is justice. Something you never understood. Krev looked at the screens, then at his guards. Slowly, he sank into a chair. I surrender, he whispered. Send the second transmission. He-Yun nodded to the guards. Take him to the council ships. They're waiting. As they led Krev away, he turned back. I should have made sure you were dead. Yes. He-Yun smiled slightly. That was your first mistake. Your second was thinking that humans only understand direct revenge. She watched him leave, then touched her communicator. Duha, send the transmission. The real one. The one showing he acted alone. No, send everything. He-Yun looked out at the stars. He made his choice when he tried to kill me. Now his empire makes theirs. Reform or fall. Either way, the weapons trade ends. Walking back to her shuttle, He-Yun felt lighter. The Nax would survive this, she knew. But they would emerge changed. Better. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure it never happened again. 3 months after Kreb's arrest, He-Yun stood before the Stellar Council chamber. The room was different now. The Nax seats were still there, but their representatives were new, younger, chosen by their reformed government. Captain He-Yun, the head counselor, spoke. Your actions have changed the balance of power in our space. The Nax Empire has undergone significant reforms. Their weapons trading has stopped. Pirates in the Outer Rim are losing support. He paused. Some say you went too far. With respect, He-Yun replied. I went exactly as far as needed. Perhaps. The counselor looked at his notes. Commander Kreb's trial begins next week. He still claims you tricked him. I did. He-Yun smiled slightly. I let him think he could choose to be a hero, taking all blame to save his empire. But the truth was already spreading through Nax space. His choice meant nothing. A cruel deception. He tried to kill me with a slow-acting poison. He-Yun's voice hardened. I replied with a slow-acting truth, which was crueler. Back on the Dauntless, her crew waited in the mess hall. When she entered, they all stood. At ease, she said, sitting down. It's done. The council has approved all the new trade routes. The ones you proposed before. Jiho trailed off. Before they tried to kill me. Yes. He-Yun accepted a cup of coffee from Sunbai. Funny how things work out. What about the phase shift technology? Minji asked nervously. The council wanted it. They can have it, once our scientists understand it fully. He-Yun smiled at her engineer. Your invention will help a lot of people, Minji, but we'll make sure it's used properly. Duha entered the mess hall, carrying a datapad. Captain, you should see this. The pad showed news from Nax space. Their colonies were holding their first free elections. Military bases were being converted to trade stations. Schools were opening in places that had only known warrior training. "They're actually changing," Taiwan said softly. "They had to." He-Yun looked around at her crew. "What we did, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about breaking a cycle. The Nax believed strength came from fear and weapons. We showed them a different kind of strength." Speaking of strength, Sunmei held up a medical scanner. "Your last tests came back. The toxin is completely gone from your system." He-Yun flexed her fingers, remembering the paralysis. "Good, because we have work to do." "New orders from the Federation?" Jaiho asked. "Yes." She stood up. "There's trouble in the Karina sector. Seems someone's been selling advanced weapons to both sides of a civil war." Her crew straightened, ready for action. "But first," He-Yun's eyes twinkled, "we're going to make a stop. The Nax military is decommissioning their old warships. They're looking for experienced captains to help convert them to exploration vessels. You're going to help them?" Taiwan asked, surprised. "The best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy," He-Yun said, walking to the window. Stars streamed past as the Dauntless cruised at faster-than-light speed. "It's about transforming them into something better." She turned to her crew. "The Nax tried to kill me because they thought humans were a threat to their way of life. They were right, but not in the way they thought. We threatened their beliefs about strength and power. And now," she smiled, "now they're learning what real strength looks like." "To the future," Sunmai raised her coffee cup. "To the future," the crew echoed. He-Yun looked at her reflection in the window. The captain who had died 3 months ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, more determined. The Nax had tried to assassinate a human captain. They had failed, but in failing, they had helped create something they never intended. A symbol of change, a catalyst for transformation. "Bridge to captain." A voice came over the comm. "We're ready for faster-than-light jump to the Nax shipyards." He-Yun touched her comm badge. "Take us in." She looked at her crew, her family, and smiled. "Let's show them what humanity can really do." The Dauntless leaked into faster-than-light speed, carrying its crew toward their next mission. Behind them, the Nax Empire was changing. Ahead lay new challenges, new opportunities. And if anyone else thought about trying to assassinate this particular human captain, well, they'd learn the same lesson the Nax did. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the weapon aimed at you. It's the target that survives.